All right, so are you ready to dive into atomic habits with me today?
Absolutely. I'm excited to unpack this one. It's a game changer, especially for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So for our listeners today, we're going to do a deep dive into atomic habits and really explore how even those tiny changes can make a huge difference.
And not just in business, right? It's about that ripple effect into all areas of life. Productivity, meaning purpose, the whole shebang.
I love that you said that because I think a lot of times people, especially entrepreneurs, get so caught up in the hustle and bustle of just getting things done that they forget about that bigger picture of what they're actually working towards.
Yeah, it's easy to lose sight of the why behind the what. And Atomic Habits, I think, gives us that framework to connect those dots.
Okay, so let's unpack this thing. One of the things that really stood out to me when I was reading this book was the whole idea of debunking the myth of overnight success.
Oh, yeah, that's one of my favorite parts, too. It's like watching an ice cube melt. You don't see the change happening until, bam, suddenly it's gone.
And I think that's such a powerful analogy, especially for entrepreneurs, because building a business takes time, right? It's not like you just snap your fingers and suddenly you're a multimillionaire.
Exactly. And the book calls this the plateau of latent potential. It's all that work you're putting in, even when you don't see the results right away.
So it's like that feeling when you've been hitting the gym consistently, but your jeans still fit the same.
Haha. Yep. And then one day you try them on and whoosh, they're loose.
It's like, where did that come from? I've been working so hard.
Well, the work was happening. It just wasn't visible yet.
And I think that's so important for entrepreneurs to remember because it's easy to get discouraged when you don't see instant success. But it's about trusting the process and understanding that even small, consistent actions can have a massive impact over time.
And that's what Atomic Habits is all about. It's those small wins, those tiny improvements that compound over time and lead to those breakthrough moments.
Okay, so another concept that I found really intriguing was this idea of the identity shift. It's not
Mhm.
just about what you do, but who you become.
Ah, yes, the identity shift. That's where the real magic happens, I think.
But I'll admit, I'm a little fuzzy on how it actually works.
Okay, so think about it this way. Imagine an entrepreneur who wants to build a successful online business.
Okay, I'm picturing them now. Laptop, open coffee in hand, big dreams.
Right. Instead of just saying, I want to be a successful online entrepreneur, they start believing I am a successful online entrepreneur.
So it's like they're stepping into that role before they've fully achieved it.
Precisely. And with that shift in identity, their actions start to align with that new belief.
So they might invest in professional development courses, network with other entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
dedicate specific time each day to work on their business.
You got it. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more they act like a successful entrepreneur, the more they believe it, and the more likely they are to actually achieve success.
Wow, that's so powerful. Because it's not just about the actions themselves. It's about the beliefs that drive those actions.
And that's crucial for entrepreneurs because let's face it, building a business takes a lot of self-belief and resilience. You're going to face rejection, setbacks, challenges. It's inevitable.
But if you truly believe you are a successful entrepreneur, even before you see the tangible results, you're less likely to give up when things get tough.
Exactly. You've already decided who you are, so those setbacks become just temporary bumps in the road.
Okay, this is mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah.
I'm already starting to see how these seemingly small shifts in mindset can have a massive impact on how we approach our work and our lives.
And that brings us to another core concept in Atomic Habits, the habit loop.
Okay, break it down for me. What's the habit loop all about?
Well, the habit loop breaks down habit formation into 4 stages: cue, craving, response, and reward.
All right, so cue, craving, response, reward. I'm following along. But how can understanding this loop actually help entrepreneurs build those habits that lead to success and fulfillment?
Okay, let's take an example. Imagine an entrepreneur who wants to make it a habit to write a blog post every week.
All right, I can see that being a really valuable habit for an entrepreneur to have. For thought leadership, building their brand, attracting clients.
Absolutely. So let's say their cue is finishing their morning coffee. The craving could be that feeling of accomplishment and clarity that comes with writing.
Okay, so the cue is that trigger that sets off the whole cycle. And the craving is the desire or the motivation behind the habit.
Right. The response is actually sitting down to write the blog post. And the reward could be sharing the post on social media and engaging with their audience.
Ah, I see. So by understanding the different stages of the habit loop, you can consciously design your environment and actions to make forming that habit of writing more appealing.
Exactly. You're hacking your brain's reward system. Essentially, you're making it easier for yourself to stick with those good habits.
This is starting to feel very actionable. Instead of just hoping to develop good habits, you can use this framework to be intentional about creating the conditions for success.
And the beauty of the habit loop is that it can be applied to all sorts of habits that are relevant for entrepreneurs, from waking up early to exercise, to planning your week effectively, to dedicating time for creative thinking.
Oh, yeah. I can see how understanding those cues, cravings, responses, and rewards could really help me stick to my morning routine, for example.
Exactly. So you might make sure you have a dedicated writing space free of distractions. You set a timer for 30 minutes of focused writing and then reward yourself with a break or a walk outside after you finish a post.
This is brilliant. Instead of just hoping for the best, you're actually setting yourself up for success.
And that's what Atomic Habits is all about. It's about making those small changes that over time can lead to those big transformations in your life and your business.
Okay, so we've talked about the habit loop, but how do we actually make those good habits irresistible and those bad habits less appealing? I know Atomic Habits has some pretty cool tricks up its sleeve, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It does.
One of my favorites is temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling. That sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
Well, it's all about linking something you need to do with something you want to do.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get this.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I hate doing laundry, but I love listening to podcasts. So I only allow myself to listen to my favorite podcasts while I'm folding clothes.
Bingo. You've just temptation bundled. You're essentially hacking your brain's reward system to make that necessary but maybe not so enjoyable habit more appealing.
And it works. I actually look forward to doing laundry now because it means I get to catch up on my podcasts.
Exactly. So for an entrepreneur, maybe they hate doing their accounting, but they love listening to music or audiobooks, so they only allow themselves to listen to their favorite tunes while they're crunching
I
numbers.
love that. It's about finding those little ways to make those less than thrilling tasks a little bit more enjoyable.
And those little tweaks can make a world of difference when you're trying to build those positive habits and break those negative ones.
This is great. Okay, what else can we do to make those positive habits stick?
Well, Atomic Habits also talks a lot about the power of environment. It's about designing your surroundings to make the desired action the easiest, most obvious choice.
So if you want to eat healthily, don't keep a bowl of candy on your desk.
Exactly. Make those healthy snacks readily available. Keep those tempting treats out of sight. And for entrepreneurs, this could mean creating a dedicated workspace free from distractions.
Okay, I'm picturing a clean, minimalist desk with a comfy chair, good lighting, maybe a plant for some greenery.
She's got it. It's about setting yourself up for success before you even start. And it's not just about the physical space, it's about the mental space as well.
So surrounding yourself with inspiring books, quotes, maybe even vision boards.
Exactly. It's about creating an environment that supports your goals and aspirations.
I'm starting to see how all these small changes can add up to a big difference in how we work and live. It's not about making these massive overnight transformations. It's about those tiny tweaks, those incremental improvements that compound over time.
And that's the beauty of Atomic Habits. It's not about willpower or motivation. It's about understanding how our brains work and using that knowledge to our advantage.
Okay, so we've talked about the power of environment, but what about when we just don't feel like doing anything? We all have those days, right? When even the thought of tackling a simple task feels overwhelming.
Absolutely. And that's where the 2-minute rule comes in.
Okay, I've heard of this one. It sounds deceptively simple. But tell me more.
Well, instead of trying to tackle a huge project all at once, commit to just 2 minutes of focused effort.
So instead of feeling overwhelmed by the thought of writing an entire business plan, I could just tell myself to work on it for 2 minutes.
Exactly. The goal is to make starting so easy that you can't say no.
It's like tricking your brain into getting started, because once you've overcome that initial inertia, you're more likely to keep going.
And often you'll find that once you've started, those 2 minutes turn into 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and before you know it, you're in the flow.
I love that. It's like that saying, well, begun is half done.
Exactly. And the 2-minute rule is a great way to overcome procrastination and get yourself moving in the right direction.
Okay, so we've talked about the power of environment, the 2-minute rule. What else can we do to make sure we're actually following through on those good intentions?
Well, another powerful strategy is finding an accountability partner.
Oh, yes, accountability.
Oh.
I've heard this is a game changer. But how do you make sure it actually works? We've all made those promises to ourselves or others, and then life happens.
Well, the book suggests creating a habit contract with clear commitments and consequences.
So you're making it more official, adding a layer of external support.
Exactly. Maybe you and your accountability partner check in with each other weekly to review your progress and share any challenges you're facing.
It's like having a personal cheerleader in your corner, helping you stay motivated and on track.
And that external motivation can be incredibly helpful, especially when your internal motivation dips, which, let's be honest, happens to all of us.
This is great. We've covered a lot of ground already, from tiny gains to identity shifts to habit loops and accountability partners. Is there anything else we should keep in mind as we continue exploring atomic habits?
Well, one thing that's really important to remember is that while there are universal principles in this book, we all have our own unique strengths and weaknesses.
This is where it gets really personal, right? It's not about trying to fit into a mold, but figuring out what works best for you.
Exactly. Atomic Habits encourages entrepreneurs to find their advantage, those areas where their personality and skills give them a natural edge.
So it's not about trying to be someone you're not. It's about understanding your own strengths and building habits that support your unique style.
You got it. For example, an entrepreneur who is naturally outgoing might find that networking and building relationships comes easily to them. That's a huge advantage in business. They can leverage that strength to build habits that further enhance those skills.
While someone who is more introverted might excel at deep thinking and strategic planning.
Exactly. So instead of forcing yourself to do things that feel unnatural, you're leaning into your strengths and creating a path to success that feels authentic and fulfilling.
I love that. It takes the pressure off trying to be someone you're not.
Hmm.
And it allows you to celebrate your unique gifts and talents.
And that's what Atomic Habits is all about. It's about understanding yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, and using that self-awareness to create a customized approach to habit formation.
Okay, one last thing before we move on to part 2. Atomic Habits talks a lot about the power of reflection. Why is this so important for entrepreneurs, and how can we make it a habit?
Well, reflection is crucial because it allows you to step back and evaluate what's working and what's not. It's about being honest with yourself about your progress, celebrating your wins, and identifying areas where you can improve.
So it's not just about blindly following a plan, but actually assessing its effectiveness.
Exactly. And for entrepreneurs, this is especially important because the business world is constantly changing. What worked last year might not work this year.
So it's about staying agile, adapting to those changes, and making sure your habits are still serving you.
You got it. It's about treating your business and your life as an ongoing experiment, constantly learning and evolving to reach your full potential.
This is so inspiring. I'm starting to see how building the right habits is not just about productivity hacks, but about intentionally designing a life that supports our success and fulfillment as entrepreneurs.
And that's what we're going to dive deeper into in part 2. We'll explore specific strategies for building those habits that lead to a more productive, meaningful, and successful entrepreneurial journey.
I can't wait. So stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back after the break with part 2 of our deep dive into atomic habits.
And for entrepreneurs, that ability to adapt and reflect is so key. We're always facing new stuff, new challenges, new opportunities. It's not just about building habits, it's about fine-tuning them, making sure they're still working for us, helping us hit those goals.
Totally. It's like you have a business plan, but for your habits. You're constantly checking in, making sure it's still aligned with where you want to go.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about small gains, the identity shift, the habit loop, even making good habits, like super tempting. But let's be real for a sec. We all have those days where motivation takes a nosedive. And those bad habits, they just sneak back in.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it. It's like you're on a roll and then bam, you hit a wall. I'm all about building good habits, but I know I'm going to have moments of weakness. So what does Atomic Habits say about that?
It definitely addresses that. One technique it talks about is making bad habits way less appealing, like putting up a barrier between you and that temptation.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? What would be an example?
Say an entrepreneur is constantly glued to social media. They're losing hours scrolling and scrolling. They could make it less accessible, log out of their accounts, even delete the apps temporarily from their phone.
So it's like you're intentionally making it harder to give in to that impulse.
Exactly. You're adding friction. Even a little bit makes a difference. You're less likely to go for that quick hit of whatever it is.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like when I hide the cookies on the top shelf.
Right.
So I don't just mindlessly grab them when I walk by, out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. And for entrepreneurs, this could be anything. Checking email nonstop, getting pulled into pointless meetings, putting off those big, important tasks. It's about making those things a little harder to do.
Love it. Okay, so we've made bad habits less fun, less accessible, but can we actually automate our good habits?
Totally.
Yeah.
Think about where technology can just take over. For example, an entrepreneur wants to save more money. Bam! Set up automatic transfers to their savings account every month. done.
Like you're outsourcing your good habits to your bank account.
Exactly. You're taking out the decision making. The desired action just happens automatically.
That's so smart,
Yeah.
especially for those things we know we should do, but then life gets in the way and we forget.
Right. It helps you build that consistency. What else could we automate? Scheduling social media posts in advance, using filters for your email, automatic backups for important
It's
files.
like having a personal assistant just for your habits, working in the background to keep you on track.
Exactly. And remember, Atomic Habits isn't about turning into a robot or following rigid rules. It's about understanding your brain, working with it, not against it.
So intentionally designing a life that sets you up for success,
Hmm.
both in your business and outside of it.
Exactly. Okay, but what about when we just straight up don't feel like doing anything? Those days where even a 2-minute task feels impossible.
Oh, I know those days. Well,
Yeah.
it's like my brain is just saying, nope, not today.
That's where the motivation ritual can be a game changer.
Motivation ritual. That sounds fancy. What is that?
It's basically doing something fun right before a tough habit. You're creating a positive association and giving yourself an energy boost.
So instead of dreading it, I'm linking it to something I actually enjoy.
Exactly. Like an entrepreneur is putting off writing that blog post. Create a motivation ritual.
Mhm.
Listen to some upbeat music, do a quick meditation, anything to get in a good headspace before sitting down to write.
It's like a little mental pep talk and a shot of espresso for your brain.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Light a candle, make some tea, take a few deep breaths. Find those little things that spark joy and use them to fuel those actions that might not be so inherently enjoyable.
Such a good point. It's like taking the principles of game design and applying them to our daily lives.
Exactly. Make it fun, make it rewarding. Speaking of rewards, Atomic Habits also talks about celebrating our wins no matter how small.
Yes, that's so important. It's easy to get caught up in the hustle and forget to acknowledge our progress.
It's about taking a moment to appreciate how far you've come, giving yourself credit for all that effort.
And that can be so motivating, especially for entrepreneurs who are always striving for more.
Absolutely. It helps to keep you going. When you face those inevitable challenges and setbacks, acknowledging those small victories helps you maintain that momentum.
Okay, let's switch gears for a sec. We talked earlier about finding your advantage, playing to your strengths.
Yeah.
Why is this so crucial for entrepreneurs and how can we actually DO it?
As entrepreneurs, we're always juggling so many different things, wearing all the hats. Knowing our strengths and weaknesses helps us focus our energy where we're most likely to excel.
It's about working smarter, not just harder.
Exactly. And realizing there's no one right way to succeed. What works for one person might not work for another.
So figure out what game you're meant to play and build habits that support that.
Exactly. Like an entrepreneur who loves data and numbers, they might do really well in a business that's all about analytics and strategic planning.
While someone else who's super creative and loves connecting with people, they might shine in a business that's all about building relationships and coming up with innovative ideas.
Exactly. It's about understanding your own personal operating system, choosing a path that aligns with who you are.
Makes total sense. So instead of trying to squeeze yourself into a box, you're embracing what makes you unique and building a path to success that feels right for you.
And once you know your strengths, you can build habits that help you leverage those advantages.
This is so empowering. Instead of trying to be someone else, you're celebrating what makes you you.
Exactly. Okay, so let's say an entrepreneur knows their strengths and they're starting to build those habits that support them. What are some common traps they should watch out for?
Yeah, what are those things that can trip us up even when we have the best intentions?
One big one is trying to do too much too soon. It's easy to get excited and want to implement all the things from Atomic Habits at once.
I can totally see myself doing that. It's like going to the gym after a year off and trying to lift the heaviest weights. You just end up sore and discouraged.
Exactly. Remember, building lasting habits takes time and consistency. Start small. Focus on 1 or 2 habits at a time and build from there.
Slow and steady wins the race, right?
Exactly. Another trap is forgetting about reflection. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and forget to step back and look at the big picture.
It's like driving a car without ever checking the mirrors or looking at a map. You might be moving, but are you going in the right direction?
Yeah. Perfect analogy. Regular reflection helps you course correct, adjust your habits, and make sure you're still on track to reach your goals.
So it's the glue that holds everything together.
Yeah.
Helps you stay mindful, celebrate your whims, and course correct when you need to.
Exactly. It's about actively participating in your own growth, not just hoping that good habits will magically happen.
This has been so insightful. I'm really starting to see how building the right habits isn't just about productivity. It's about intentionally creating a life that supports our success and fulfillment as entrepreneurs.
And that's what Atomic Habits is all about. And as we go deeper into this book, we'll explore specific strategies for building those habits that lead to a more productive, meaningful, and successful entrepreneurial journey.
Okay, so we've covered so much in our deep dive into atomic habits, tiny gains, identity shift habit loops, temptation bundling, finding your advantage, even automating those good habits. But as we wrap up, what are some takeaways that entrepreneurs can use right now, like today?
One of the biggest things for me is this idea that building a successful business and a fulfilling life, it's not about some big dramatic thing. It's about making those small choices every single day.
It's those small wins that add up over time.
Yeah.
But as entrepreneurs, it's easy to get caught in that go big or go home mindset.
Yeah.
How do we stick with those tiny habits when we don't see results right away?
That's where reflection comes in. Big time Atomic Habits is all about regularly reviewing your progress. See what's working, make adjustments, like taking your business plan for a checkup.
So being honest with yourself.
Mm.
What's working, what's not. Not just blindly following a plan, but really seeing if it's effective.
Exactly. It's about asking the tough questions. What habits are moving me towards my goals? What's holding me back? What can I do differently? But it's not just about problems, it's also about celebrating those wins.
Yes, acknowledging those small victories can be so motivating,
Mm.
especially when you're dealing with challenges and setbacks.
Absolutely. It helps make those good habits stick. Remember, building a successful business, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's about finding that pace you can sustain without burning out.
Makes sense. Create a system for success that you can keep up long term.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into Atomic Habits, what's one key takeaway that you'll be using in your own journey as an entrepreneur?
For me, it's that reminder that success isn't a finish line. It's a journey. It's about embracing those tiny habits, knowing they're setting you up for a more productive, meaningful, and fulfilling life as an entrepreneur, and remembering that even small changes over time can lead to huge results.
I love that. It's about shifting our focus from the outcome to the process, knowing those daily habits shape our future. And to all the entrepreneurs listening, building the right habits isn't about being a productivity robot. It's about designing a life that supports your growth in business and beyond. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're killing it in your work and feeling truly fulfilled by what you do. So ask yourself, what one tiny habit could you start today that over time could make a massive difference in your future?